My grandmother was a pioneer. Her Chinese zodiac was the rooster, which we always laughed about, because roosters are supposed to be pioneers, and they're not supposed to get along with horses, which my grandfather was. And maybe that's why they split after 45 years of marriage. My grandparents were farmers. They owned a small farm in southern Alberta, where the Canadian thistles compete with the beets. They owned some cows, and my dad remembers trying to ride them as kids. My grandmother, for as long as I remember her, which may be as long as she had dementia, loved repeating stories. She told me about being a home economics teacher, proudly graduating as a woman from the Alberta College of Agriculture. She told me that when she was little, she was very weak, and so her parents sold her to a witch. And I'm not quite sure how this witch thing worked, but magically, she was strong again like a 5-year-old should be. She'd always look at birds and say, "Oh, to be a little bird." She wanted to be a flighty thing, rather than a farm wife.
Got it.
She was the baby chick in her family. She told me stories about her older brother, Uncle George, who played the fiddle. And the funniest story about Uncle George was when he brought home a handsome, swindling salesman. This cat was so handsome and swindling that he was able to steal my grandmother. My grandmother tells me she was only 15 at the time, but that part of the story makes no sense. Because I think it's my grandfather, and she didn't start having children until she was at least 38. But then again, near the end, she thought Uncle George was still alive, could hear the ghost of his violin song, but couldn't hear me from across the carrot patch. And in the end, my Uncle Dale wanted her to die in a warm, clean home, with a floor of pink carpet instead of a field of black dirt. She wasn't supposed to spend the rest of her life playing bridge. I saw her husband, my grandfather, forget his son's names. Saw a scrambled egg fall from his mouth while being fed by a nurse. Roosters aren't supposed to die inside the house. So in the end, it was a truck. She was on my Uncle Arvin's farm about 3 hours from here, near Columbia, Missouri. He needed to check the irrigation system. He hopped out of the truck, and when he came back, her blood had forgotten oxygen. I imagine the truck was red and rusty and cold.